The distress beacon cut through the void like a scream in silence. Julia's fingers danced across the holographic interface, her eyes narrowing at the readings. "Captain, you need to see this." Her voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too much in the outer colonies. Yet this was different. This was fear wrapped in desperation. Oscar moved from his command chair with the practiced grace of a veteran officer. 20 years in deep space had taught him to recognize the unusual, and the tension in Julia's shoulders told him everything. He leaned over her station, studying the cascading data streams. "It's Zilthari," Julia whispered, her accent thickening with disbelief. "The Zilthari Confederacy is broadcasting an open distress call. To everyone, to anyone." Oscar's jaw tightened. The Zilthari, those crystalline beings who had looked down upon humanity for centuries, who had called them primitive primates at the Galactic Council, who had voted 3 times to quarantine Earth's expansion into the stars. Now they were begging for help. "What's the threat level?" Oscar asked, though he suspected he already knew. "It's the Devourers, Captain. They've breached the Zilthari core systems." Julia's hands trembled slightly as she pulled up the visual feed. The display showed something that made even Oscar's battle-hardened mind recoil. Massive, biomechanical entities tearing through space stations like tissue paper, consuming everything in their path. Planets reduced to husks, entire fleets scattered like leaves in a storm. "How long do they have?" 48 hours, maybe less. Julia turned to face him, her dark eyes searching his weathered face. "They're requesting immediate military assistance from any species capable of FTL travel." The message: "Oscar, they're offering everything. Technology, territory, trade routes. They're promising full citizenship rights to any species that helps them." Oscar let out a bitter laugh. Citizenship rights? How generous of them. He remembered the day humanity had been denied entry to the Galactic Council. How Julia herself had been escorted off a Zilthari diplomatic vessel because her primitive biology was deemed offensive to their sensibilities. "Sir, are we going to respond?" Julia's question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. The bridge had gone silent. Every crew member was watching him now. Oscar could feel the weight of their attention, could sense their anger, their memories of humiliation and rejection. The Zilthari had done everything in their power to ensure humanity remained isolated, afraid, diminished, and now they needed Earth's grimmest nightmare. Oscar thought of his grandmother's stories, tales of ancient Earth before the Unity, when nations fought and fell, when humanity had known what it meant to stare into the abyss and fight anyway. The galaxy thought humans were weak because they hadn't seen them fight. They'd never witnessed what desperation could forge in the human spirit. "Communications." Oscar's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Broadcast on all frequencies. Tell the Zilthari Confederacy that the Terran Defense Fleet has received their distress call." He paused, letting the words settle. "And tell them we're coming." Julia's eyes widened. "Captain, I know what they did to us." "Julia, I haven't forgotten." Oscar's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "But we're not them. We don't abandon people to die, even if they're bastards who deserved better than they gave us." Within the hour, the orders had been transmitted. Within 6 hours, every available Terran warship was converging on their position. The galaxy had never seen humanity mobilize for war, not really. The species that had built weapons in the vacuum of space, that had turned asteroids into artillery, that had learned to harness the power of stars themselves. Julia watched the tactical display as the fleet assembled. Over 200 warships, each one a testament to humanity's stubborn refusal to die quietly. The Indomitable, the Last Stand, the Remember Earth, ships with names that spoke of defiance and survival. "Why are we doing this?" Julia asked quietly, standing beside Oscar on the bridge as the fleet prepared for the jump to hyperspace. Oscar was silent for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "Because someone has to. Because if we become like them, if we let cruelty and pride dictate our actions, then what's the point of surviving at all?" He turned to her, and she saw something ancient in his gaze, something primal and undeniably human. "We're going because it's the right thing to do. And maybe, just maybe, when this is over, they'll finally understand what it means to be human." The jump alarm sounded. Reality twisted and folded as the fleet punched through into hyperspace, racing toward a battle that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The Zilthari had begged for help. They had offered everything they had. Expecting mercy, they had never shown. What answered their call was indeed Earth's grimmest nightmare. Not because humanity was cruel or monstrous, but because they possessed something the Zilthari had never truly understood: the absolute, unbreakable will to fight for others, even at the cost of everything. 42 hours later, when the Devourer's massive bioships detected the incoming Terran fleet, They found themselves facing an enemy that refused to yield, refused to break, refused to accept defeat. The Zilthari, watching from their failing shields, witnessed something they had never thought possible. Humanity didn't fight like the other species. They fought like cornered animals with nothing left to lose. They fought with a ferocity born from millennia of surviving against impossible odds. They fought because someone needed saving, and that was enough. When the last Devourer ship fell silent, drifting dead in the void, the Zilthari Confederacy finally understood why. Earth had always terrified them, that it wasn't humanity's weapons or their ships, it was their heart. Julia stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching Oscar accept the formal surrender of territory and the unprecedented apology from the Zilthari Council. But she knew, as did every human who had fought in those desperate hours, that they hadn't come for conquest or revenge. They had come because when someone screams for help in the darkness, humans answer, even if it means becoming the nightmare that saves the day.